Fighting Irish Faithful podcast, volume 55. Feels like we've been here forever. This is the Fighting Irish Faithful show, season 3, episode 3, and we're titling this one the preview podcast of all the podcasts doing previews right now. Wrap your mind around that one. Let's go, Irish. Thank you for joining me, everyone. If you're new to the show, like I said, this is our third year doing this, and I'm really excited this year. We have upgraded equipment. We do have the new computer. I think it's working. And really, really good to be here with everyone. So the tagline of this show, for anyone who's new, is Scotch and Spreadsheets. And yes, we drink scotch. I have a scotch here. We started the year with a Glenmorangie 14 year. Went with something new I haven't had before and something that's it's not too peaty, but it's pretty good. And then the spreadsheet piece is, so I'm very analytical about my show here, and we like to provide some evidence and some data, but then we also want to be interactive with the people that are on Twitter and just other people we know. So we're going to unmute some people here, and we're going to invite Coach Parsegian to speak here. Coach, unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. Welcome back to the show. Coach Eric Parsegian.
How are you? It has been a while.
106 days. I just did that Google search. The last time we did a show was in April, right after the spring game.
Well, I will say I like the new logo. I think it looks better.
Thank you. You know, it does have kind of a clean, polished, professional look. It was actually done in Photoshop by someone else that I asked for help. But yeah, it has kind of that clear, crisp, and you know exactly what you're getting. Also, I should not be getting in trouble with the university with this new logo. But yes, ironically, I'm wearing a T-shirt of the old logo.
Well, it looks better either way.
Well, I appreciate that.
Plus, you get out of having to deal with any kind of copyright and lawsuit.
Yeah, I didn't get into like legal trouble, but the store was basically giving me a stern finger wag via the university through Etsy. So so for anyone who wants to know, Fighting Irish Faithful, there is gear available. We'll do a slight 20-second plug here. T-shirts, sweatshirts, new items, baby clothes, if you have a baby or a onesie, up to 24 months, since I have a baby, and also pint glasses. So that's a new one, and koozies, of course. We did that last year, but all new logo stuff. There's another idea of a shirt that I want to do, but I need to continue to do some research to make sure I don't get in some trouble on that one. So, hey, we like breaking rules and just swinging from the hip here.
Well, it's not the 80s anymore when you could get away with that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Catholics versus convicts. And then the other shirt that same game showed Newt Rockney and like U.S. stamps and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so.
It infringed heavy on the U.S. Postal Service.
Absolutely.
Stuff.
Well, anyway, so we also have some traditions on this show other than talking to Coach Parsegian on all our live shows. Coach, how many shows has this been? Do you have a count yet?
I don't have a count.
It's probably at least 6. It's
I don't
all
even
of our
remember
live
what
shows.
game it was that it started.
It was right before the bowl game. And,
okay.
Catholics versus Cowboys, part 3. So... But yeah, in addition to scotch and spreadsheets,
so many times.
What was that?
People through church and whatnot said we lost to the Cowgirls. I don't know how many times. And it's just like, well, at least we didn't blow it in the title game.
Right, exactly. Well, in addition to scotch and spreadsheets and talking to Eric Parsegian, a 2-time national champion, and we also do two things, but now we're going to add a third tradition this year. Number one, we give a Twitter shout out to someone, and it's very subjective. Changes and the criteria is always moving. We give some sort of toast to someone, either on Twitter or usually associated with the team or something at Notre Dame, something like that. And then also, the third tradition is we are going to now perpetually have an obligatory Brian Kelly bashing moment.
I love it. I love it.
Brian Kelly is, of course, gone. Our new coach is Marcus Freeman. And I got into a little Twitter scuffle today. Me and 5 Foot Nothing Pod kind of went and tag teamed up against some troll who was, building up Ohio State today. And I mean, Ohio State's good. They're favored, right? Whatever. But this guy was just being completely ridiculous with score predictions and saying that we'll be missing Kelly. And so I'm like, absolutely not.
I wouldn't understand why Kelly might score a field goal. I mean, I would think Marcus Freeman's going to at least put up double digits.
Yeah, I do too.
Worst case scenario.
And I'll be very honest. So tonight's show is very much a kind of high level intro of the season and some high level stats and whatnot. And I don't have too much specific about Ohio State. And so I'm going to try to steer the conversation away from that. Now, if someone wants to talk about it, by all means, hey, to our guests, to the people on Twitter, you want to talk about Ohio State? Hey, it's your show. You do what you want to do. Well, we brought Red Snapper on. Red Snapper 1998 is my brother. Brought him on to be co-host, and right now he's just listening. So most likely, given that he's on the West Coast, he's probably making dinner or something to that effect. So, well, hey, Coach, we're gonna come right back to you. Dave has requested to speak, and I know is probably still at work, so he's probably like hiding in the parking lot or something, so he can jump on real quick. So, Coach, we'll come right back to you.
Go ahead.
And then Dave, you're invited to speak, so jump on, Dave, if you can.
And I'm driving home. I am not cooking. I just left work. So.
Oh, okay. Thank you for supporting the economy. Dave, you've been invited to speak. Unmute yourself. Pink button, lower left-hand corner. Pretend you've done this before. Well, in Red Snapper, you didn't have to go on mute. It's fine, It'll sound like ocean waves there in California, right?
No, I just did that because I was cursing out somebody that cut me off in Southern California.
Oh, that would have made the show even more exciting. We hear you cussing, road rage.
Hey,
a little
you know me. I'm a great, kind guy.
Were they a USC fan?
Traffic, and then the Italian. No.
Maybe they are.
Although they probably were.
They probably are.
They probably are, actually.
Dave, are you there? For those who don't know, Dave joined us.
Hey, what's up? What's up? I'm here.
Hey, Dave, you doing all right? Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm at work, and it sounds a little muffled in here, but I apologize for that. But I was like, I'm too excited about getting on at 11. I figured out I'm going to try to get on now, even though the noise in here is ridiculous. So.
Well, you definitely sound like you're working in a factory right now. So, Dave, just go real quick. I don't want to have too much, buzzing and machinery noise or whatnot you got going on back there. And we certainly don't
God forbid him being distracted from work. Oh, my God.
That's right. And,
what's going on, bro? Oh yeah, I don't know about all you guys, but I can't wait for September 3rd to get here. It can't get here quick enough.
It is. If one has been on Twitter every day, there's a countdown of X number of days and said player and whatnot. So, and with that, I want to give the Twitter shout out, and it's going out to Dos Leprechauns for ever since I think we hit day 99. They have been every day consistently on their Twitter handle, but consistently doing a countdown with players. So to Dos Leprechauns, the shout out is to you guys.
Yeah, definitely.
Some of those have been epic. I've definitely enjoyed the countdown with the player numbers.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, we'll give you a couple minutes here. What are you most excited for with this season, or any high level perspectives, thoughts about the program, where we are? We're in fall camp right now. Just whatever you want. Let's do it.
I think it's going to be, we're going to see such a different Notre Dame football team with the new staff, new attitude, new culture. I mean, are you kidding me with what we're doing recruiting-wise right now? It's not even funny how, I mean, years past, we haven't been able to do that in the Kelly era. And he's down at LSU. That was a decision he made. And I think we got the right guy in there right now because, I mean, who's going to be able to get the guys that he has got? And it sure wouldn't have been Brian Kelly. And I think Ohio State better be ready to play on September 3rd because I know one thing. The Irish are going to come to play, and we got some athletes there that are ready to go.
I agree. I'm really excited for our offense under Reese, now completely unhinged, have an entire fresh new season without the influence of Kelly. Really excited for Al Golden and guys on our defense like J.D. Bertrand, Isaiah Foskey, those kind of guys, and then of course our running backs.
Yeah, but I feel bad for that true freshman when us guys were there sitting there together watching the spring game, and the kid from Texas, Darian Price. I mean, the kid looked like he's got so much talent and so much to give to this team, and to have him go down with an Achilles injury, I feel bad for him. I just hope he can come back and be 100% for next year.
Yeah, it's that performance by Price made us wanting to do the Price is Right theme, and now
yes.
I feel like this is what we're getting. It's absolutely terrible. So, it is what it is. So,
yeah. I think we also talked about the kid from Northwestern on defense at safety. I mean, Kyle Hamilton was an elite athlete, but I tell you what, I think this kid's going to be. He don't have to take a back seat to him. He looked really good, and he was ready to go. And I think he's going to be a big difference maker on that Al Golden defense once we get started.
Where Hamilton was the ball hawk sideline to sideline, I think he's going to end up being that enforcer that you're going to see receivers afraid to go over the middle.
Oh, yeah, definitely. By far. I mean, he was coming up in run support, and we were like going crazy. I'm like, man, this kid's not afraid to hit anybody. He's up in the hole. He's filling gaps and trying to fill run lanes. I'm like, wow. I mean, I think he's going to be a great addition for us for 1 year, and hey, we'll take it. We'll take that kind of production out of an All-American who played at Northwestern.
Yeah, Brandon Joseph will bring a lot of stability.
That fills a need too, because what was the one thing that we were absolutely horrible at last year was second level run stuffing. And
exactly. Yeah, we were talking about that. And I think we got, with our linebackers healthy, with Mustafa back, and this kid here from Northwestern coming up, and I mean Bertrand coming and Kaiser, I mean we can be just, I can't wait. I can't wait for September 3rd because the Buckeyes, I mean, that's all we're talking about. And it's so funny because here, me living in Ohio, that's all I'm hearing about is we're going to get beat by 42 points and this and that. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, that ain't going to happen. I'm sorry. You played in the Rose Bowl last year against a team that we would have beaten handily if we would have played them. I mean, they were a 3-loss team, and you played them in the Rose Bowl, and you had barely won the game in the end. And you're supposed to have the number one offense in the country. I just don't understand some of the. But that's all Ohio State fans here in Ohio.
It's called a lack of logic. That's what it is. And
exactly.
Which is kind of the complete opposite of this show.
I've got the number one hot take of the season. I'm calling it right now.
Nope.
Hot take. Notre Dame,
I'm writing this down.
number 1 overall scoring defense.
I agree. I agree with that. I'll take that right to the bank. I agree with you 100%.
Red Snapper, I'm writing your prediction down at 9:26 p.m.
Yes. And Isaiah Foskey will lead the nation in sacks. I'm calling that.
All right. Maybe we should call this the preview podcast of all wild Notre Dame predictions. Okay. Well, Dave, thanks so much for everything. Thanks for jumping on during work. We're stacked on some people here. We want to try to get everyone, as many people.
After 11 o'clock.
All right. Talk to you later, Dave. Go Irish.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Bye.
Later, Dave.
All right. That was Dave. Dave, he's changed his Twitter handle, like something about the Cubs or whatever, but that's fine. So let's go over to Jason and Coach here. Jason, unmute yourself, please. We'd love to talk to you.
How's it going, guys?
Jason, welcome back to the show.
Sir.
For those who do not know you, please give your Twitter handle.
It is pretty simple. It's just J Yeager and the number 9, and that's it.
J Yeager 9. Well, Jason, what are you most excited for with the season?
The one spot that we really haven't talked about is defensive line. With all the talent that's coming in and coming back, it's going to help all of the growing pains of bringing in some new defensive backs and stuff like that, and should solidify everything. I'm more excited about seeing those guys coming in with Ford and Fauski going.
Oh, yeah.
Alone.
Tyson Ford. And you had the opportunity to meet Tyson Ford with your son during the spring game.
Yes. Yeah, on walking back through the dorms.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of player-specific analytics tonight. I intend to do that research, per se, for next week's show. So 1 week from now, we'll be dropping those stats. But as far as defense goes, it is important. And as Red Snapper has predicted that Notre Dame will be the number 1 scoring defense, Jason, do you know who the number 1 scoring defense in the country was last year? I'll give you
Georgia?
Yes, it was Georgia. And so the average, though, if Notre Dame wants to sniff excellence, i.e. in the same ballpark as teams that win the title, they need to be on average 8.7 in the country in scoring defense. Now, that's not the most important stat, although it's the most important defensive stat. And for the people who are new to the show, Jason's about to, roll his eyes here and probably go pour himself a beer. This show is very evidence-based, and for anyone's new, people like Colton, Adam Dowling, I think we've talked before, or anyone who's listened to this on the podcast version and is like, who the hell is Fighting Irish Faithful? Why should I listen to him? Well, the reason is, as an evidence-based person, I want our team, Notre Dame, to win a title. I want another sign on the big yellow sign, another year on the big yellow sign in the locker room. And how are we going to get there? Well, yes, recruiting is important, and we'll talk about that soon. But at the end of the day, there are statistics and performances and metrics that we must achieve. And what I've done is, over the last 10 years, looked at every team that's won the title. So Georgia this past season, then Alabama, LSU, etc., all the way down. And I look at all the important stats: touchdowns, scoring defense, rushing touchdowns, etc. And I figure out, doing this research, of how each title champion has performed in all those stats and where they rank relative to all the other teams in college football. And then you add it up, and here you go. And the lowest number, the lowest rank or the highest rank, depending on how you want to look at it, it's like a golf score. You want a low number. The national champion on average, the most important stat is total touchdowns scored. They average 80 touchdowns for the whole season, a 14, 15 game, season. And they rank 4.7. Then the number 2 most important stat, Red Snapper, do you remember what that is?
Passing yards.
Close. It's passing touchdowns. The national champion, on average, over the last 10 years, ranks 8.5 in the country in passing touchdowns. They throw 41.4 touchdowns. Now, what's interesting about that is when you look at passing touchdowns, well, what else happens? You get national champions, but you also get Heismans. But on average, the number of touchdowns thrown by every guy who's won the national champion in the last X number of years, it's a very, very high number. And why is this not ranked? Oh, this is really bad radio. I'm sorry. Okay. The last 10 years, the average number of touchdowns thrown is 34. So it's kind of interesting how the quarterback, is doing 34, but then the team as a whole is doing closer to that 40 range. And what that tells me is that these are the backup quarterbacks going in there and throwing touchdowns. Why? Because they're killing the other opponent. So I wanted to bring that up because I like running the football, and I now have to eat my own words essentially on that and pay attention to passing touchdowns. Now, rushing touchdowns are still important too, but at the same time, I would be a fool and be kind of going against my mantra of this podcast, Scotch and Spreadsheets, not so much the Scotch piece, but the spreadsheet piece, and letting the data show us the path. This is the path. You follow this through the woods. Hey, if you're throwing 41 passing touchdowns a season and you're holding your team, your opponents, to 15 points on defense, you're scoring offense, you're scoring 42.6 points on average per game, okay? You're winning. Your scoring margin over the last 10 years is 27.2 or greater. This is the performance of teams that are winning the title. But we'll throw it back to Jason or Coach Parsegian about that, about the statistics.
I mean, you can't. It's cold hard facts. That's the facts. So it's going to depend on how Reese and the passing game opens up. You don't have the depth at the running back that we hoped we would. You don't have the depth at wide receiver that we know we never were going to have this year.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, how are they going to mix it up?
Right, exactly. Well, and that's an interesting point because you're talking about, the receivers and the running backs and then how they're going to mix up play calling. Now, I've just told you all that that passing touchdowns is the second most important stat to pay attention to. But what's interesting is if you actually look at play calling on offense and teams that are winning the title, Jason, do you know how much they pass the ball or run the ball? Like what the split is? My guess would have to be 60-40 rush, just because they're crushing teams running it down in the fourth. That is close. It's technically, it used to be closer to that 60-40 range, but then Joe Burrow has kind of blown that up, and then you're seeing that with quarterbacks like Bryce Young and whatnot. But lately, if you take the last 10 years on average, national title teams run the ball 56% of the time. And Red Snapper, what can we say about that?
RTDB, baby.
Yeah,
run the damn ball.
That's right. We're going to run the damn ball. Because running the ball, football is a violent contact sport, right? And big hits and that kind of stuff. Like there's something excellent when Ray Zeller is Mac trucking Purdue guys and high stepping into the end zone, right? If you don't know what I'm talking about, just type into YouTube Ray Zeller destroys Purdue, okay? And you'll get all sorts of happiness. versus someone like Jeff Samardzija, who's running around and the shark is diving into the end zone and doing all that sort of cool, sexy stuff. Fine. And don't get me wrong, Samardzija would lower his shoulder against like Tennessee and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that like wide receivers are sissy or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But running has a more physicality essence to it. It's more like rugby, stuff like that. So, but yeah, the new stats show, or I should say the updated stats, they're not new, but the updated stats now go to and give some priority now to passing touchdowns, then scoring defense, scoring offense, total defense, rushing defense, then rushing touchdowns, then total offense. And then it kind of drops off from there with sacks and third down and turnover margin, Okay. Well, anyway, Jason, anything else you would like to discuss tonight on the podcast? Anything high level? Anything we missed?
Where's Buckner going to take us?
Oh,
That'd
my
be the only other thing is that. But other than that, I mean, I think we're hitting it.
I'm really glad you brought up Buckner. There is a reason why I have not mentioned him yet, and there's two reasons. One reason is he technically hasn't been named the starter, which I think is completely absurd. And don't get me on my rant about why he didn't play in the bowl game. However, I don't think when I checked ND Nation today, I did not see any announcement or anything like that on social media. So I think that's still in the washing machine. But secondly, in 2 weeks, we will have a dedicated quarterback discussion. I'm assuming it's going to be Tyler Buckner, and Fighting Irish Faithful is going to get buck wild.
I definitely think it's gamesmanship on Marcus Freeman's position, because the longer he can persist on not naming a starter, the more Ohio State has to guess, plan, and really the only film they have is whatever they picked up from the spring game, because everybody's new. And besides Drew Pine, who had sporadic moments but did not look good in the spring game, I honestly think it plays into the favor of gamesmanship. I think it absolutely puts a huge question mark of no one knows what to expect from Tyler Buckner. We've heard quotes from Mayer about whether or not
he can put the ball wherever.
Does he have the cannon that we've heard in his quote? Does he have the ability to throw the ball? If he does, I threw it out. I think it was Always Irish put up what's the biggest thing you want answered this year. And I want to see, does he have that cannon of an arm? And if he does, then that absolutely solidifies and falls into everything you've just been saying about being passing touchdowns, such a prominent statistic for the national championship average, that now plays into why Notre Dame would even consider running an RPO style offense, a run pass option. If you're a threat to pass the ball, then guess what? If you're also a threat to run the ball, which last year we really did not have, then but he was so dedicated run, nobody expected him to throw the ball. The few passes we saw him throw, they were amazing.
Well, and let's not confuse anything here, because Tyler Buckner only threw 3 passing touchdowns last year. Okay? But that was only on 35 attempts. That's an attempt to touchdown ratio of 11.67. That's really good, actually.
Exactly.
Really, really good. So, it's not Joe Montana good, right? Well, actually, that's not true. It's better than Joe Montana of 1977. Okay, so the of all these quarterbacks I looked at, we're gonna give a little preview here of what's to come in 2 weeks. There's a stat here I want to talk about shortly, but we'll blow our wad right now. Don't read into that. The on Tyler Buckner, I mentioned his attempts to touchdown ratio of 11.67. So 11 to 12 passes, he throws a touchdown on average. That is better than Ian Book in 2019, 11.74. That is better than Brady Quinn in 2005 and 2006. It's certainly better than Everett Golson. It's better than Jimmy Clausen, and it certainly was better than Jack Cohn at 15.44 last year. Now, granted, Cohn had ice in his veins, even though he had lead feet, and was Iceman, and did win us multiple games. Toledo, Florida State, right? So, and I went last year and said there was a place for Jack Cohn and for Buckner in last year's team. But this year, and a lot of it will depend on the style of offense that Reese is going to run. I'm assuming it's going to be RPO. That's because that's just kind of what is happening right now in college football, and everyone kind of does the same thing, unless you're Navy or Mike Leach, if we want to talk about the two opposite ends of the spectrum here. But yeah, so that kind of analysis for the quarterbacks will come in 2 weeks with Tyler Buckner.
But I like the offensive line being set up the way it is for zone blocking scheme and an RPO. The big question mark of TB12 sets it up also, because if he has the arm that we all hope he does, then that absolutely is going to make him that dual threat. And now all of a sudden, does he get, the reins? And we are all excited to see the unleashed Reese offensive playbook. We are all excited to see what TB12 can be.
I'm very curious.
I'm excited to see the production of a solid, cohesive offensive line.
Oh, please. Anything is better than last year's garbage.
But, look at our coaching staff. Look at everything we have set up going into the season. It literally is, I see recruitment up. I see players. I see coaches. I see all the question marks leaning to our favor, not to our disadvantage. So I'm extremely hopeful.
Yeah, that's there's so much to unpack right there. Anything from our new offensive line coach, who's really not new to Notre Dame at all, in Heastan. Jason, do you want to say something? I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah. Am I the only one that's a little bit nervous to see Tommy Reese with an open playbook and not know what to expect? Like, I honestly have no idea what to expect from it. Because he did not, if the bowl game had anything to say about it, he didn't open that playbook much. Right. Even though he had did he have the full reign? We don't know, but now he truly does. That's my thing, is we're going to find out if he's that up and coming offensive coordinator they talked about last year, or is he not really? It was Brian Kelly making the calls, and exactly. I'm more worried about
my opinion, if I may, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. My opinion is I don't know what to expect from Reese. I do think let me put it this way. I hope he is a better coach than he was a player. I'm concerned that he was never able to develop a quarterback in Book, and there's evidence about how Book actually showed digression, especially in 2020 relative to 2019. Granted, his receivers were not nearly as good in 2019 as 2020, right? So that's kind of a wash. If you want to ask me what our strengths of our offense is, other than Mayer, it's our running backs, right? And we'll talk about that next week when we go into the deep dive numbers and production lost from last year and what to expect and what we got to do, et cetera, et cetera. So other than Mayer and Styles, and everyone's, hoping and praying that Braden Lindsey finally has his breakout year that everyone's been wanting. That's all I can really think about from the receivers that just jump out. On the running back side, Price is, unfortunately, we thought we were going to be, winning at Plinko, but right now, unfortunately, we've got this kind of shit going on. So the price is not right. The price is kind of wrong with him right now. So that's a bummer. But you got Estime, you got Diggs, and Tyree, and Diggs I know is a little banged up right now, but I think he's coming back. Whether we see him on September 3rd is another story.
No, absolutely. And my caveat to Jason is how much of the bowl game was may or may not because Reese didn't open the playbook up. Maybe it was the limitations of Cone because of the oppression, so to speak, of BK. Maybe BK's influence didn't allow Cone to really develop the way he should have, so that you had Reese who could open the book and say, hey, let's try this. Cone's like, what? Like, so I think that's also a question of it, not having the continuity from head coach to offensive coordinator to an offense. And now all of a sudden, I kind of to go a little Wizard of Oz, ding dong, the witch is dead. How do you handle it? You know, and I think they just stuck with what they knew because that's what they knew. I didn't think there was time to, okay, let's throw 22s on, you know, my 1990 LeSabre and see how it looks.
No, I get it. Plus, it could be the Cleveland Browns fan in me that is just always negative and always doubting anything good in life. So,
is that negativity or is that embracing reality?
Touche.
You know, honestly,
I'm just saying.
Cleveland,
I like Cleveland.
Cleveland Browns need to put the emblem of Eeyore on the side of the orange helmet because they have a cloud that perpetually sits over that stadium.
I feel bad that I made my kids a Browns fan.
Eeyore and Pigpen.
So
Wait,
yeah.
I thought your son was gonna be a Chargers fan. Now that's where Kyron Williams went.
The Rams.
Oh, he went to the Rams. That's right.
And yes, he is also he is also a Rams fan. Like, he'll say he wants to play for the Browns or the Rams with Kyron Williams.
Okay, nice.
And then my daughter is a Chargers fan. I think it's just because they're teal.
What?
Hey, it's baby blue. It is not teal.
Baby blue? That doesn't make it better.
It doesn't.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Absolutely, it does.
That's way too close to North Carolina blue.
Teal is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Is Miami.
Why are we talking about the NFL? Okay.
And I just put this all the way the wrong spot.
No, it's fine. It's not like a trigger for me. You know, that's not what I'm saying. You know, I just don't want. If anyone else is new, I don't watch the NFL. I give so much eyeball time and other, you know, commitment to the show and whatnot to college football, like to the point where my wife, the doc, she's like, for the last couple of weeks, like, oh, are you excited to podcast again? And she's like totally in and totally supportive, but she also knows like, okay, like this is tonight is like the official start of college football season in this house, because it's like, okay, now we're doing the podcast. Like everything is now scheduled around. Like I got a call from a friend of mine. He's like, hey man, we're going to do this thing. Like, you want to go? And I'm like, no, it's college football season. I'm sorry. I can't do that. You know, like so I'm like having to turn things down, you know? So that doesn't leave a whole lot of time to like clean up my house and play with my son and do yard work and other shit around the house on Sundays other than going to church. Right. So I don't know. Well, Jason, Coach Parsegian, anything else you want to talk about? We've invited Creek Kid 97 and Faded Kaos, KAOS, Faded KAOS. It sounds like a cool radio station there. KAOS, where rock lives. I don't know. You guys are invited to speak if you want. If you want to just come on here and praise Brian Kelly or bash Brian Kelly, or scream F Michigan, all of that sort of stuff. Or say you're a USC fan and you want to talk some Yang, right, to some Notre Dame people, bring it. I've had a couple of drinks, so don't be surprised if something comes back. You know? Not to be, you know, threatening or anything like that, you know. So.
Well, I'll say this as far as what to expect from Reese. I think majority, including the bowl game, of the restrictions of opening the playbook is in large part due to Brian Kelly. since before Freeman was named head coach officially, when you would hear Reese talk in cell phone videos and the meeting rooms, and you would see him give interviews. When he was a player, I called him Tommy Turnover for a reason.
Yep.
And looking at him as a coach, his demeanor is a complete 180. He looks like he has this swagger and this aura about him as a head coach, or as an offensive coordinator, as a coach. He seems like a completely different person with a completely different mentality.
He seems more confident.
Yes, that was my next word. He seems more confident. Like, being a quarterback, he's almost like a field general, and now he is an actual general to an extent.
So, Coach, you brought up an interesting thing with Tommy Reese with the nickname of Tommy Turnover. Pop quiz. Of these three quarterbacks, Tommy Reese 2013, Everett Golson 2014, and Deshaun Kaiser of 2015, which one of them had the most or the highest touchdown to interception ratio? So, i.e. the best quarterback. Of the three, which one was best from a touchdown, total touchdowns thrown divided by interceptions? Pop quiz. Just guess of the three.
My initial guess is going to be Kaiser.
Okay. Red Snapper? Jason? Dave?
I'd actually say Reese.
It's Reese. Not a doubt in my mind, it's Reese.
Anyone else? That's it? You're all wrong. They are all tied. All three had the same touchdown to interception ratio of 2.3. That was a little trick I just did there, Coach.
That's amazing.
Isn't that weird? That's really weird.
That is weird.
And it's better than Everett Golson of 2012. It's actually better than Joe Montana of 1977. Right? Which is kind of weird. But, I mean, the game was kind of more rushing back then, so maybe that's not a good comparison. Unfortunately, though, all of them are better than Buckner from last year. Buckner was 1-1, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So anyway, you were talking about Tommy Turnover, and I'm like, oh, I have this stat. Oh, here it is. Okay, so that is the power of the spreadsheets.
Interceptions came at the most inopportune time.
You're not wrong about that.
I mostly think back to that Oklahoma game in South Bend.
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be another interesting thing to do is which of these three quarterbacks has like the best win percentage, and I bet it's going to be like, it's not Kaiser because 2016 was a complete dumpster fire, but it's probably going to be Reese, probably had the best win percentage. It's kind of like Ian Book, right? He has the most wins for a...
Well, it probably would be Reese just because he played in more games than Golson did.
Dave, hello.
Hey.
I thought I heard a factory.
Yeah, I want to just chime in real quick. You guys can attest to this and back me up on this. We're going to have a lot of talent on September 3rd. But if our punter and kicker situation doesn't get in order, that's not going to help us any. Because as you guys were there for the spring game, our punting, it was horrible. I mean, our kicking wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. We better come up with, we better be out there getting Bramblets and all the other kind of punters and kickers we've had over the years and get that, because if not, that could be a difference between a one-loss season, a no-loss season, 2 or 3 loss season, or even worse without a good kicker.
Yeah, Dave, I appreciate you bringing up special teams and especially kicking, because that was probably one of the more concrete, per se, elements of the spring game that you could actually take, with some, evidence, some strong conviction going into the next season, or like, man, this is an area we really need to work on, or we got this in the bag, right?
Absolutely.
It was terrible, and
Absolutely
you know,
frightening.
anything from punt returning,
Absolutely
where
frightening.
like it's so funny. I've gone back and listened to our show from the spring game, and clearly I'm a little tipsy, but like I went on a cussing rant about whoever it was did the stupid slide into home plate attempted catch fumble of a punt return during a fucking spring game. Like, what the hell? So that was just absolutely ridiculous. And then the field goal kicking was not good. You're in your own stadium. It wasn't windy, nothing like that. So it's like, we can't kick field goals. That's not good. Now, that doesn't really matter if you just score touchdowns, right? So if we score 80 touchdowns for the season, you know, Fighting Irish Faithful is going to be a happy camper. But what's really surprising about that is our kicker, Josh Bryan, when he was recruited a year or two ago, he was the number one kicking recruit in the country.
Yeah.
So riddle me that.
And he didn't show up in the spring game.
Yeah, so who knows, you know, and if it's because in practice they're doing more emphasis on tackling and whatever else, okay, but I'm pretty sure that the kickers kind of like, they just kind of do their own thing, and then every now and then they get together and run with the team and lift and, you know, whatever. But
we have the number one kicker as a transfer that came in. He was new to the stadium, so the home stadium thing, I will give him a pass on for the spring game. He's on the watch list for best kicker this year.
oh, is that the dude from like Florida Atlantic or whatever, some Sunbelt team?
Was it Arkansas State or was it the kid from Harvard?
Arkansas State. The kid from Arkansas State was the number one kicker last year in the 2 or whatever league that is.
Well, it was a subdivision. Yeah, it's whatever the hell they call it.
Yeah, whatever they call it nowadays. But he was the number one kicker. He's going to be fine. I'm not worried. Like, I remember talking about that and thinking about that. Yes, he is going to be fine.
But we need a punter, though. I know that.
Yes.
Our punting game was putrid.
Or we just get first downs, then you don't have to punt, right?
Yeah, we need a lot of those, but you know damn well that don't happen. We got to, field position is key in this game, and you only get a limited amount of possessions every quarter, every half, every third quarter, every fourth. So,
Agreed.
I mean, we got to have a pretty good punter too to change the field on opponents. So, I mean, we've had good punters for the last probably, I'm going to say, go back maybe to Kyle Brenza. Was he a punter or was he a kicker?
He was a kicker for sure.
Kicker. Who am I thinking of that we had before Bramblett that was the punter we had?
Oh, jeez. And he was a captain, too.
Help us out, guys. Somebody chime in here.
That's
I'm brain dead
Newsom,
right now, too.
Tyler
I can't
Newsom.
remember his name. He's
Newsom.
kicking. I think he's punting in the NFL right now.
Tyler Newsom. It was
Yes.
Newsom.
Yeah, Tyler Newsom. Yes. So we've had some good punters back to back. I don't know why they couldn't go out and get the number, a top 5 punter in the country.
You know, like, punting is one of those things where it's like, unless you're, what's his face for the Colts, that's now running his own podcast or whatever. But yeah, like, I feel like punting is one of those things where it's either like you shoot a cruise missile down the field or you just shank the fuck out of it. Like that,
Yeah.
and there's really no like middle ground, right? And like I feel like if these guys can just aim for that middle ground, then maybe they'll get a long one every now and then. But like, just don't shank it, right? So I don't know. What I'm more concerned about with Brian Mason is not so much the actual punting side, but the punt return side. Like, can we return punts and not just fair catch them with Matt Salerno? Like, can we try that?
Yeah, no kidding. Matt Salerno should not be back there unless we absolutely want to fair catch a punt.
I mean, shit, put Isaiah Foskey back there, okay,
Yeah,
and he'll run back.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. I mean,
Actually, Bo Bauer, the Bo Bauer package.
Yeah.
Sharp,
Yeah, because we got
hockey
the
skate.
kid coming in next year from Texas. That is the sprinter, the kid out of Texas, the safety. I mean, Micah Bell. He's in the 2024, 23 class. I'm not sure, but I mean, there's a guy right there that could return punts. He's a sprinter and everything else.
Nice. Yeah,
I mean, we got a sprinter. We got Lindsey who can run. We got our running back that can run. I mean, I would hate to put him back there and catch punts, but Judas Priest, a couple moves here and there, and it's Katie by the door right now, and nobody got to catch him.
Dave, I have to really appreciate that you just said Judas Priest instead of dropping a JC blast and breaking a commandment. And I like heavy metal.
Take the Lord's name in vain, baby.
I appreciate you not doing that.
You've said that to me a couple times now. You ain't gonna hear me say it, so.
Oh, good. I'm your conscience here. No, that's sorry for someone who likes listening to heavy metal and punk and stuff. Hearing someone use Judas Priest as a way to avoid breaking a commandment,
as an expletive.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Well, I'm an AC/DC diehard. AC/DC.
We know
fan,
your
so.
phone went off once when you were on call at the ER and during the show. It's fine, but we closed the show out to Thunderstruck, so it's fine. So,
Yeah.
if anyone's new, there's some fun live shows. Gosh, what was it? Fighting Irish Faithful After Dark was good. The Spring Game show was good. I know Jason in the off scene is probably caught up on 50 plus shows, so thank you, Jason. Now he hasn't yet bought a shirt or a pint glass from the Fighting Irish Faithful store, but hey, you do you. It's your money. You do what you want. Honestly, I just wanted to buy more stuff and put my baby in podcast gear and be a walking advertisement. So. Anyway, and if you want to paint,
like the new flag though, bro. It does look good.
Yeah,
I was waiting for the new stuff to come out, and then I didn't know it was released already. So you saying this, I've already looked at everything and about to place my order here pretty quick.
Add to cart. Yeah, you know what? Hey,
I like it. I gotta get something.
No
too.
pressure. Hey, if someone wants to go to the Etsy store, it's in my Twitter account. It'll be in the link in the description of the show. At least it should be. If we ever get the show up on Spotify and iTunes.
So who's all going to the Marshall game?
Oh, we haven't talked about this. So I am going to 2 games this year. Sadly, not the one in Vegas. I've been promoting the Vegas game forever. And there was a moment where I could have bought tickets physically. The problem is, so I'm married. I have a baby. He's 1. Jason and Dave and Red Snapper have seen him. And I, in good conscience, could not leave my wife and baby son home while going to Las Vegas to gamble and drink and watch football while they stay home. So, what?
That's a good father right there, brother, and a good husband.
I
would get cut if I tried to go.
You get cut.
Oh yeah, you're cut off after that if you do that crap.
Well, didn't you say that would be an excuse to drink your Johnny Walker Blue?
Oh yes, yeah,
yes, it would be.
Johnny Walker Double Black.
There we go. Well, good. Well, hey guys, there's someone here. I've invited to Ram27 invited you to speak. He's been a loyal follower on Twitter, Ram27. If you want to join in and chime in, by all means, as a friendly environment, or any of these other guys, Regasan, KAOS, where Rock lives. I have no idea what the reference is. Who is that? A NASCAR Formula One driver on your thing? I don't know. Oh, it's some guy giving the middle finger. He's saying "fuck Michigan." I love it. Maybe not, but yeah, Ram27. If you want to jump on and speak your mind, by all means, this is a friendly place. We're not going to make fun of you and not going to give you 5 seconds like other shows. So, as you can hear, we're literally allowing the audio quality to fall 5 points by listening to Dave's, shock making department or wherever the fuck he's working. I don't know. What are they making there?
We make drive shafts for semis, and I'm a quality inspector, so I got to go around and check crap and measure stuff and all that good garbage.
Nice. I used to be in manufacturing. I have since changed roles. and I'm less stressed, and I worked from home today, so let's put that in perspective.
Oh, must be nice. I can't inspect effing parts at home.
You can't inspect parts at home? No one can FaceTime a part?
No.
That's fine. No, I respect, to anyone working in a manufacturing shop. It's loud usually. It's kind of dangerous, and if you fuck up,
Yeah.
people can get hurt. So thank you, Dave, for your attention to detail. We have someone new.
I'm gonna take myself off the mic so I don't have as much crap going on in the background
go
for you
inspect
guys.
some parts. Okay.
I gotta do some paperwork, and then I'll be back here in a little bit.
Thanks, Dave. That's how shoot
Right
from
on,
the
Dave.
hip this podcast is. Someone is literally at work checking drive shafts and doing his thing. He didn't go on mute. Should I mute him myself, Red Snapper?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll be.
Bye. Okay. Love you, Dave. All right. We've invited a new friend, probably for Red Snapper, Hockey Man at Hockey Dude 8487. We've invited you to speak because he's
Definitely loving the jersey.
I had to read that and I was like, "Fuck, Red Wings, really?" So, Red Snapper's gonna you're gonna go home and put your wait. You have
I'm like, it's in a box right now, but
What?
I know exactly where it is.
well.
I'm mobile right now. I'm
You
not
are.
in my home place. I've been crashing with extended family and the new
Yes.
job transfer.
You are transferring.
So yeah, most of my stuff, including my Stevie Y jersey, is in storage. So
Well, and that's like a playoff jersey or Stanley Cup final jersey, isn't it?
I think that's a Russian Olympic jersey.
Oh. Say that quietly right now. Well, speaking of hockey, Ram 27's got some Kings. Go Kings, go.
That's right. Go Kings, go.
Yeah, that's right. Go Kings, go. Oh, I gotta find that
And once
Cartman clip.
Cartman shows himself again.
Ram
So, yeah,
27.
I'm new to this.
Welcome
I
to
like
the Fighting
listening.
Irish Faithful show, sir.
Yeah, I'm new to doing this little group chat on Twitter, so bear with me, everyone. Nice of you to
No
all
problem.
join Irish fans. So very good.
This is a friendly, welcoming place, and whatever's on your mind, or wherever you want to chime in about Notre Dame football, or if you want to talk shit about the Red Wings, that will be acceptable today too.
Okay. Very good.
Right now, we're
So,
giving it kind of a high-level overview of the year, what you're looking forward to this season. But if you want to talk very specifics about a particular player, about recruiting, Marcus Freeman, say
any hopes, any fears, any expectations, any wild takes, hot takes like I just gave, go for it.
Yeah. The recruiting this summer by the coach has been tremendous. If they don't finish with maybe a 10-2 record this year, that'll be great if they do. But look out for the rest of the 2 to 3 years after that. I think we're going to be going for the national championship year in and year out.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up recruiting, because there's two things I want to talk about with that. Number one is, in addition to talking about stats of the national champion and kind of more like physical, tangible stats about, okay, total touchdowns and passing touchdowns and scoring defense and da-da-da-da-da. This year, and especially with Marcus Freeman killing it on the recruiting trail, it really brought to light that I need to pay more attention to recruiting. So being the analytical person that I am, I went back as far as I could using 24/7 Sports' website, because it's pretty easy to navigate, especially now with a really sweet new computer. I can't believe I lived as long as I did with the old piece of machinery that I had. Anyway, the national champion on average, the last, I think, 9 years, because I can't go back 10, each team, their 4-year average is 5.3. So if Notre Dame is 5th or lower every year now with Marcus Freeman, that's really, really good. That's putting us in prime opportunity, striking opportunity with high talent, great players who can contribute. Maybe most of them get to their degree, whatever. But let's not kid ourselves. They're there to play football. And these guys coming in, and it really, one thing, and I'll throw it back to you, Ram 27. One thing it sounds like is that all Marcus Freeman is doing is just picking up the phone and just saying hello, calling them, reaching out every week, every couple weeks, whatever. And I listened to an interview of a commit for, I believe, the 2023 class on Dos Leprechauns show. And he was just saying that, Marcus Freeman he doesn't come off as like a head coach. He comes off as like, you're, like an uncle or, like someone who just, is like a mentor and looking out for you. And so he's making a more personable connection. And is that really all the secret sauce is to recruiting? Is all it is that you just have to pick up the phone and just give them some personal attention? How are you doing? How are your family? What are your goals? How's school going? What do you think of the season? Come to Notre Dame. This will set you up for life. We've got the greatest facilities that you could get, bar none, equivalent to any other school. We've got huge alumni network. We've got a decent football program, with tons of support, etc. All he has to do is just pick up the phone.
Exposure of Notre Dame, absolutely. I think what we're seeing is the weight that Notre Dame has carried. And you can use TV as an example. NBC has saddled itself to Notre Dame consistently for how many years? Because it is not just national, it is international.
Yep.
The fact that Notre Dame can draw that kind of audience, the exposure that is there, I think that old school vibe of Notre Dame is being reconfigured and updated so that it now plays into the image and likeness. And you get the exposure at Notre Dame, primetime, NBC. Guess what? Your name, image, and likeness, you put on a show, you're a high 5-star recruit, you're going to make some money. You're going to get known. People are going to see you. And I think that's the difference. If you have a consistent class that comes in, you look at, okay, how we did this year for the 2022 class. Okay. Look at how we're setting up 2023, 2024.
Yeah, we're number one in both years.
If everything continues after that and everything continues to build, and this is his first year as a head coach, if all he has to do is tap into the tradition and the widespread reach that is Notre Dame, that has been Notre Dame, that will always be Notre Dame, then he's doing it is bringing it to the future in the forefront. And these kids are jumping on board. Absolutely. Why wouldn't you want to go to a national exposure?
Well, in some place that's,
just saying.
Anyone here who's on this show, like Era Parsegian is a legacy and is now, getting Wi-Fi from, the bookstore in the graveyard there because he's buried, but he still joins the show, Ram 27, I assume you're a adult, and Dave is clearly still working. He's on second shift here. Red Snapper just got off work, right? And all these other people who are on or who are just listening, and thank you everyone who's listening live and who's listening on the podcast version that will go available tomorrow on iTunes and Spotify and all those places. Life is hard. Life comes at you quick with unexpected turns, and everyone has these moments of reflection where they're like, I could have done this better or done that better. But at the end of the day, you do best with what you got. And then you're also very grateful for the good decisions you made in your life. I'm very grateful for, like the career I have, and for the spouse I have, and for the college I went to and whatnot. There are good decisions that you can make in your life. And I don't know of any former player, who went to Notre Dame and said, I should have gone somewhere else. I don't think that, right? Like take Malik Zaire, for example, one of my favorite players who really came in at a moment where Notre Dame was at a very low point in 2014. We go to the bowl game, the Music City Bowl, and we beat LSU handily. Like, we just come out of nowhere, and he had the best attitude. Now, then he gets injured tragically, and he's recently written a book, and I want to read it. I haven't bought it yet, but he wrote a book about, overcoming struggle and whatnot. I think it's called Lucky Lefty, so we're going to give a shout out to Malik Zaire on that. But then he eventually transferred to Florida because it was apparent that he was not going to keep the starting job because Deshaun Kaiser was the man, right? That being said, though, Malik Zaire still associates himself with Notre Dame, right? He was at the Blue and Gold game and doing some of these other things, with name, image, and likeness, and he's got some associations to support players that way. My point is, I'm sure Malik Zaire never regrets getting his degree from Notre Dame. And yes, he transferred to Florida so he could, try to benefit his career, potentially for the NFL. That's fine. But he still associates himself with Notre Dame, not Florida. So back to Ram 27. I'm sure you're stoked that Kyron Williams went to the Rams, being from LA.
Oh yeah.
But what, other than recruiting, anything else that is jumping out at you and you're excited for this season? Either Ohio State coming up in a couple weeks here on the 3rd, or something else we haven't discussed yet, or you want to revisit a topic we've already discussed.
Got on just a little bit ago, but yeah, it's too bad that we're playing Ohio State as the first game of the season. I would like to have seen that, maybe week 3 or 4. That way everyone can see where we're at, or know where the kids are playing at, what adjustments what they need to improve on. It's going to be a very adjustment period for them, meaning everything playing in the first, and they're playing with, what is it, Ohio State number 2 or 3, right?
Yeah, they're up there right now, currently in the coaches poll.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm just stoked for the season. I want to see how these kids are gonna, gel together, going on through the season. So it's gonna be really. I'm really excited to see them.
Now, being in LA, I assume, do you have and yours truly here? I am from LA. Red Snapper, my brother, currently lives in LA, or the LA area, I should say. I'm okay. We were from the 909, right? But we hate USC. And I'm pretty confident sometime this season during the bye week, I think we're just going to turn it into a teams we hate show, right? So we'll just piss all over USC and Michigan and whoever else anyone wants to dump on. Not that because we're angry and mean people, but it's a bye week. What are we going to talk about, right? Okay. But that's an interesting point you bring up about, should we be playing a really tough game the first game of the season? Would it be better to warm up with, some sort of scrub team or some, lower
Appalachian State and lose number 1? Michigan.
Well, no, that's just Michigan who does that. But no, but that's an interesting point because like in 2020 we had Clemson, about game 7 into the season. And so it was kind of out there, and you could prepare and progress, and we kind of got into a swing of things. Now we won the game, which was fantastic. And that was the first post-game show I did. Now we weren't live on Twitter Space at the time, but nonetheless, we still did a show. But then you could take it the other way, and what if you get your big game right away? Because let's not kid ourselves. Ohio State right now on paper probably, unless they crater, we kill them and they crater and they suck, right? Or CJ Stroud gets injured, whatever, who knows. It's very possible that they could crater. It's possible we could crater. more to come on
Mhm.
that. My point is, right now, today, August 9th, that is the biggest game of the year. And so if our team is in camp and they're running around in the heat, okay, maybe they're in the air conditioning building, who knows? But let's face it, there have been reports out of practice that some of these guys, maybe linemen or whatnot, like can't finish practice. Like they're cramping up or they're pulling a muscle or they got heat exhaustion, whatever. In a way, my sick mind is kind of happy that is happening. I am okay with Marcus Freeman and the coaching staff abusing them right now in fall camp in 2-a-days. Practice is supposed to suck. If practice doesn't suck, how can you expect to beat Ohio State in their fucking stadium?
My philosophy as a coach has always been practice should be hell because games should be fun.
Yes. And if Marcus Freeman is abusing his guys right now, and look, he's a former player. Now he's come out publicly and said, like, look, this isn't about me and Marcus Freeman going back to my alma mater. And that's fine. That's what he should say. I'm pretty sure he's saying things in private to the team where it's like, you guys need to realize that this is the environment you're walking in. This is the stuff. And he knows exactly what these guys are getting into. Okay. And he wants his young men, his players, to be successful. And so he's doing everything in his power to abuse them a little bit in practice. So when they get to that difficult environment, and the Horseshoe is a difficult environment, I really, really wanted to go to the game. And unfortunately was unable to get tickets, even with my alumni connection. I could not do it. Okay, unless I want to drop hundreds of dollars, on Vivid Seats or something, which I'm not going to do. Point being, I think that if we have our first game of the year be our toughest, I'm okay with that. Because right off the bat, one way or the other. And then the rest of the season, in theory, quote unquote, it's easier. And even if we are not the victors in the game, recall in 2018, Notre Dame opened up the season against Michigan, beat Michigan, but Michigan had a halfway decent year in 2018 to the point where though Notre Dame had a very good record at the end of the year and went to the playoffs, though losing to Clemson, there were people discussing that we shouldn't have been in the playoffs, that Michigan potentially could have beaten us or should have been in at one point later in the season, right? And the reason for that is towards the end of the year, the recency bias takes over and people kind of, I don't want to say dismiss the early games, but they essentially are like, well, that was so long ago. The team was so young and they're way more experienced. Like, that matters. It's better to lose a big game early and then win the rest of them. Like if we went 0-1 and then went 11 games all in a row after that and beating USC at the end of the year, that actually looks better than going 11-0 and then losing to USC at the end, right? So,
Yeah.
right, because it's like, look, upward trajectory, upward trend, like we're up and up, right? Like all we can do is win, right? So that's kind of my take. So I think that's a really interesting point you bring up about, Ohio State being, the first game of the year and whether or not we should play them or not. Well, Ram, we are stacked on callers and people jumping on here probably because it's 10:30 and everyone put their kid to bed or they're just, sick of TikTok or whatever. And so now they want to be on Twitter and they're seeing us or some other podcast that was live is done. So
or these guys are all West Coast like me and they're just getting home from work.
Oh, valid.
Yeah, I'm on the West Coast too, but Central California, and Fresno.
Right on.
So, yeah. But yeah, going back, I played football back in high school days, and boy, did I hate 2-a-days. Those were the worst because they grind you out to get ready for that week one game. And like the one other handler said, the games are supposed to be fun, but practices sure do suck. Let me tell you.
Yep, I hated practice. Practice was awful, but
God.
games were pretty fun.
Yeah.
Well, Ram, thank you so much for joining us. We're gonna invite some other people to jump on here.
Okay. Appreciate it,
I'm
guys.
thank you so much, and go
If you guys have
Irish.
something to say, go ahead and request to speak.
That's
and
right.
We'll definitely get you on.
Yeah, if anyone's eager, feeling brave, trust me. It sounds like this is a hostile environment because we're screaming F Michigan. But if you just want to come on and scream F Michigan, hey, we'll support you. No, this is the Fighting Irish Faithful Show, Volume 55. We sound like we're professionals because of the high quality mic, and I cannot name Red Snapper another podcast. Maybe John at Always Irish, but no one else sounds as good as this one.
Well, I think the open forum that we have created, walked into, stumbled upon, has definitely given a very unique approach where you can listen, you can talk, you can sit here and talk about whatever. I mean, we've had some crazy good stories if you go back and listen to some of the previous.
Well, some of them have been really funny too. Like I start drinking scotch and then I just start getting rambly, but other fun stuff goes on too.
Or
so
we hear about previous spouses. And
ex-wives, and Dave's not on right now,
behaviors.
so we could
Absolutely.
totally talk yang about him. Yes. Yeah, no, I mean, we've had good times on this show, and anyone who wants to jump on and speak, I'll throw an invite to you. Adam Dowling, I've invited you to speak. Hockey Man, we're going to invite you to speak if you so want. If not, you just want to listen, that's cool too. Respect. Eric Parsegian's basically he's like our professor emeritus here. He's like on the board, and he like just kind of walks in, give him his bowl of M&Ms and make sure everything's, legit. He's kind of like our auditor.
I'll take the cinnamon toast crunch, no M&Ms, please.
Oh, that's right. Or is it some days it's popcorn, right?
Yeah, some days popcorn.
Cereal for dinner.
Yeah. So everyone who's listening, so Coach Eric Parsegian is our most loyal contributor on the live shows. Sorry, Jason, you and Dave are also very loyal. We love you, but there's a scoreboard here. There really isn't, But if we did, Coach Parsegian would be on the top. He's been on more live shows than Red Snapper. Let's just put it in perspective. So he's kind of the co-host.
I missed one. Okay, one.
Well, but I mean, in addition to you being my brother, you've also literally been in studio 3 times.
This is true.
So, and you are my brother. So, okay.
Well, if this show were professional baseball, I would be the Yankees. if that makes sense.
Here we go, Yankee talk again.
Oh my gosh. Oh, someone just invited to speak. So, who is this? At Davis 0560. Kevin Davis. Welcome to the Fighting Irish Faithful, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
How you
How
doing?
about yourself?
Welcome.
Can't complain. I have a question for you guys. Throw it out there, and I know everybody's tired of talking about Brian Kelly, but with Notre Dame having legacy and tradition, being the cornerstone of what the Fighting Irish stand for, do you think his legacy is tainted?
That's an excellent question, and we discussed this in we did a Brian Kelly departure reaction show where Red Snapper, I literally put him on the phone on speaker. We were not as sophisticated audio wise as we are now, where it takes a fucking instruction manual.
After we heard about it,
Right, it was right after, and we're literally reading live tweets and shit on ESPN, like Monday Night Football I think was going on, and it was halftime, and they weren't talking about the NFL and playoffs were a week or two away. They were talking about Notre Dame and Brian Kelly. Point being, back to Kevin's question here. Kevin, I personally have a very strong opinion about Brian Kelly, and it's not the best. And yes, respect to the number of wins, number of years he's been there, and quite frankly, the last 5 seasons, 10+ wins every year, going to the playoff twice. Very good. My problem number one is I thought he was an egotistical dick. Okay, this is the Brian Kelly bashing portion of the show. To put it in perspective, the 5th show I ever did was all about Brian Kelly and putting him under the microscope and why he wasn't getting it done. And in 2016, it forced me to be very serious about my fandom. And then 2020 is when I started this podcast. But I had done a ton of research. So anyone who wants to go back and, if you got like, if you're driving or whatever and you listen to this show or whatever, go back to season 1 and it's called the, what is it? It's like something about like Brian Kelly under the microscope or something like that. It's on the YouTube channel, right? I think he should have left after the bowl game. I think if he wanted to be like, because one thing that's bothered me about Kelly is he had this kind of like politician kind of, look good in front of the camera kind of vibe while he was at Notre Dame, at least. He's been kind of weird at LSU with grinding on his players in the weird circular room and kind of being a dick to the media this past week. And maybe that's his weird, shitty sense of humor. I don't know.
Unless he was screaming face Brian Kelly.
Well, purple face. I actually respect purple screaming face Brian Kelly more than, weird dancing in the circular room with the recruits Brian Kelly. That's one man's opinion. Regardless, I think if he wanted to really leave on good terms with the university and with his players and some of these other things, go to the bowl game, then leave. Okay? And another thing that pisses me off about Kelly, yes, he has more wins than any other coach in Notre Dame football history because he was there for 12 fucking seasons, okay? But here's the deal, and don't confuse my harsh language with anger. It's more of an emphasis thing.
And that's also a measurement of how many scotch.
What? That's true. And then the speech starts slurring a little bit. And yeah, okay. But that's where this show gets really exciting. BK had a really good record when he was at Cincinnati. And then he goes to Notre Dame and is kind of like 8-5, ho-hum. And we had 2012, and everyone's really happy about that. And it's like, yay! But then that clearly became the outlier. My biggest problem right now, okay, look, Kevin, Notre Dame tradition, the tradition is winning. The tradition is Heisman Trophy winners. The tradition is national championships. We haven't had one of those since 1988. Okay? Furthermore, we have not had a significant bowl win since the 93 season. January 1st, 1994 versus Texas A&M. Look it up. Kelly had multiple opportunities to win either a playoff game, a New Year's Six win, or New Year's Six bowl, and I would even count the ACC championship game versus Clemson in 2020 because that was a very unique year. Everyone can agree that 2020 was unique, and that's putting a very polished veneer on that year. Regardless, Kelly never won a significant game that mattered. Anyone can argue with me on that. Kelly never won a game that really mattered. If you want to ask me what Kelly's best wins were, I'd say probably Clemson of 2020 and Oklahoma of 2012. Not in that order. Those were his best wins. Maybe you could also say the Music City Bowl win in 2014. Okay. My problem is that doesn't really hold weight. That doesn't hold water with me. And Kelly never met my standard of excellence. I compare Notre Dame to national championship winning teams because I want us to be the national champion. And if nothing else, if I can copy what these other teams have done the last 10 years, damn it, that's fine. Win the title. You need to win the game. That means we have to score 80 touchdowns this season. This is like the movie Moneyball now. It's like, okay, we're just putting players and stats and plays out there just to meet some sort of mathematical formula. You know what? if we win the championship game, I'm not going to care how it gets there as long as it's done ethically and responsibly. Okay.
And I think, honestly, to your point, Kevin, is his legacy tainted? First off, define legacy, which I think Fighting Irish Faithful's doing. The other side of it is he, because he has the most wins, is it going to be tarnished? That's one thing. I look at him as a great business manager. He did amazing things for the school, for the program, for Under Armour, the field, the Jumbotron, the stadium.
There's all those things had to happen
in that
under
era. Him. I think that is where his legacy really resides, because it's on the field. We were all joking about it before the bowl game this last year of he had 12 seasons, couldn't do it, and Marcus Freeman in his first game could actually achieve something that Brian Kelly never could do. So it's really, how do you define his legacy? And for me, I think it's from a business standpoint. He was a businessman that brought the team, the program into where it is now. Well, and I think that really is the setup to where Marcus Freeman picked it up. He didn't have to worry about the business side of it. He didn't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. And now he's basically given full reign. Here's your team. All you have to do is go out and recruit. And I think that he may be the perfect person to show Marcus Freeman what not to do when it comes to being on the field as a field general. But I think he was a great example to Marcus Freeman that one year to show the business side of Notre Dame. So I'll give BK his credit with that aspect of it, but as a head coach, if you're happy with just 10 and 11 win seasons, great. If not, I'm sorry. I have the same standard as my brother. I want a championship. I want a New Year's Six bowl. I want something that's going to put Notre Dame up there consistently every year.
Let's go back to Kevin.
And the discussion, and you mentioned that you thought that he should have coached the bowl game. And I'm not too shocked that he didn't, because when he came to us, he left Cincinnati not playing a bowl game, right?
Yep.
So I wasn't shocked at that. What shocked me about him in this whole process was when 10 days before is like, you have to write me a blank check. And I'm not like, it was like, I'm not going anywhere. And then you leave for $100 million. I mean, anybody would leave for $100 million, $100 million. But it's the way he did it. And that's why I'm asking about the tarnishment. It's like, you can leave. People leave all the time.
Yep.
But something about the way you do it that makes people look at it. And, of course, he's the most winning coach in Notre Dame history. So you can't take that away from him.
The biggest black eye that BK has is the fact that his players didn't hear from him that he was leaving.
Yeah.
They heard from social media. We knew the
ESPN
same time his
some of
players. So that, to me, is the biggest black eye, the biggest sign of disrespect, and to his legacy.
Yeah, I think, Kevin, you raise a really interesting point there about, the financial aspect, and there's something I don't really want to talk about this too much, but it does. I mean, it's kind of the way of the world with money. But, back in 2016, when we were god awful at 4-8, and I was so fucking pissed, and I thought Kelly should have been fired right after the NC State game, when we're playing in the rain and we're doing like fucking flea flickers and God knows whatever else in a hurricane. Like, no, just fucking run the ball, put in an I formation, just push the pile forward. If you win 17-10 because, it's like Army in 1924 style football, fine. I don't care, right? But that showed me our team had no ability to adapt, and that Kelly's coaching decisions were god-awful at that point. Fortunately, he turned things around the next 5 years in a row, which, if you had asked me if that was even possible, I would have said hell no, especially for the guy who hired Brian Van Gorder. So that's kind of my take on the whole thing, and I'm happy we've had successful seasons as far as like win percentages and numbers of wins. And, like there's like the last 5 years, anything from the Boykin catch in the Citrus Bowl to Kyron Williams stiff arming people, to Kyle Hamilton doing his shit, right? Hell, I could even go on record and say I appreciated aspects about Jack Cohn last year, right? No problem with that.
You have gone on and said that.
I will. I'm not defending Cohn, but what I'm saying for what he did, let me put it another way. Ian Book had great receivers with him for a couple of years with Boykin and with Chase Claypool, who's now, killing it in the NFL, right? Brady Quinn had Maurice Stovall, Jeff Samardzija, right? Those kind of guys, right? Who did Jack Cohn have? This is where we insert the sound of crickets, right? That
Injured Lindsey.
Well, right, and like Mayer's awesome, but he was a sophomore last year, right? So now he's a junior, and so now he's really exciting going into this season. So my point is, I think Jack Cohn did the most with the least around him. Not to mention his offensive line was terrible. It was the worst offensive line probably Kelly has ever had in the 12 years he was a coach. Okay.
I'm not gonna tell you how absolutely horrifying it was to get flashes of Phillip Rivers running for his life because the offensive line was horrible and your quarterback has lead feet. It absolutely put me in a very bad place.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, if you have anything else to say, by all means, chime in. Thank you for joining us. I threw you a follow there at Davis0560. Thank you, Kevin Davis, for jumping on. I'm not kicking you off here, obviously. You're welcome to stick around if you want. And anyone else who wants to speak or have any comments here. There's a few other things. We're about an hour and 40-ish minutes in. I want to try to keep this to about 2 hours, just because I have work tomorrow and other stuff. Although, Dave, I'm sorry. I know you get off work at 11, but you've already spoken. Kevin, anything else you want to say? If not, forever hold your peace. Not that we're having a wedding here. In addition to national champion average stats that go on, and I've already mentioned that I want to look at recruiting more, there's two other stats I want to look at. Now, one that I automatically have looked at the last few years is called yards per point. This is a stat, I don't want to say I invented it, but it's something I've been paying attention to, and it's kind of an overall efficiency of your offense. And more often than not, the team that wins the game, their offensive efficiency is really good. So if you have consistent drives that end in touchdowns, or it's all about field position because your defense is doing a good job, yards per point is kind of a good, wide net catch-all for success of your football team. And if the number's low, that's good. The national champion on average has a yards per point of 11.6. So that's kind of the watermark, the bar. If you're just under 12, you're doing pretty good. Now,
so let me clarify for anybody who's new. That's the offense produces 12 yards for every point they score.
Right. And really the origin behind that goes to me listening to, this is a really old podcast. I'm not going to talk about it too much here, but they were talking about, I guess Charlie Weiss at one point had made some claim that, for every 10 yards of offense, that's like 1 point, or 70 yards is 1 point, right? Or however you want to do that math. Then I was like, well, okay, that's fine if that's Charlie Weiss's standard, but really the team that holds the trophy, what are they doing? And it was not 10. It was, it was quote unquote worse than that. But then if you looked at Notre Dame, it was god awful. And honestly, the best team with the best yards per point that I have in my file here was actually Florida State in 2013 with Jameis Winston. They were actually a yards per point of 10.06. Georgia last year was 11.47, even with Stetson Bennett. There's two other stats, though, that I wanted to kind of break down more, because I think the rushing and the passing discussion will come up more and more this year, especially now that passing touchdowns is the second most important stat. But I wanted to look at rushing attempts per touchdown and passing attempts per touchdown. The national champion on average has a rushing attempts for every rushing touchdown of 15.97. So about 16. For every 16 times you run the ball, you score a touchdown. Passing, every 12 passes, you score a touchdown. So that's kind of like a good like watermark measurement. Like how is Notre Dame doing? If Tyler Buckner is named the starter, is he throwing a touchdown every 12 passes? I hope so. If so, we're going to beat the Buckeyes. All right, I'll go on record. If we throw that well, no problem.
Well, based off of the small sample size we had last year, that would be 1 out of every 11. He's doing great.
Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, exactly. And that's right in line. You know, now, spoiler alert, and we're going to talk about that in 2 weeks when we do the Buck Wild show. So, Marcus Freeman is doing a good job in recruiting. He's abusing them in practice. I'm really surprised no one has brought up, and we do not have to talk about this, and we've probably run out of time because there is a statistical piece I do want to get to at the end for everyone's listening pleasure.
I hope we save it for the next show just because you want to keep it within the next 15 minutes. Otherwise, it'll blow up for another hour.
Yeah, I think so. And but it has to do with the NBC contract coming up and some of those kind of things. So and realignment of teams like USC and UCLA. And
why don't we tease it on this show and then talk about it next?
It's gonna come up one of these shows. So we
Absolutely.
will not talk about Notre Dame potentially joining a conference. If you want to know my opinion about that, you're going to have to go to an older show. That's a nugget of truth for anyone who's new or someone who's an old-time listener. I'm surprised no one's brought up Shamrock Series jerseys, but that's kind of good. We don't want to talk about fashion here. Although I will say this, I did some mild self-reflection on Shamrock Series jerseys. I do think this next one is probably going to make top 2. I don't think it's quite as good as the one they had in Texas versus Arizona State in 2013. But the all white with the gold and the looks so dope. It looks so good.
Another thing jersey related, I absolutely loved Marcus Freeman's social media announcement of the green jerseys and the green game.
That was like mean tweets meets whatever. And like I've actually had mean tweets to the program, not to him, but to the program about like, why the fuck are they not wearing green? You know, like we're all wearing, like in 2019, we were at the USC game. The Doc and I are totally in green, you know, geeked out. So if you got a Christmas card from us, you know, there's your evidence right there. But the team didn't come out in green. I'm like, what the fuck is kind of this green out bullshit, you know?
But I loved that social media just reading all of these tweets and messages.
He's
and,
like, okay, we'll do it.
Everybody else does it. It's they in quotes, and you see him throw up the air quotes. Green game, but we're not wearing green. Like, I love that. So just okay. Can we put green jerseys, you know, for the Cal game?
Yeah,
absolutely. And yes. I loved it.
And right now, unless Red Snapper's not told me something, I'm going to put you on the spot here. That is one of the games that Red Snapper and I will be going to.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. You didn't send me your flight info, so I don't know when to pick you up from the airport unless you're...
That is still pending.
Okay, fine. All right. Just be truthful. You haven't bought your ticket yet.
I have not.
Okay, see, you're
watching
American Airlines, waiting for that price to drop. You know,
really. Position at work do I have at that point in time? Am I getting my promotion? And then what are my scheduled days off? Because why would I put a request for days off when that's going to change, which will nullify any request I have?
Right, but you realize I've already purchased your ticket, and
No, I know.
Okay, all right. I'll stop bashing you. This is brother bashing here. For the record, Red Snapper is my older brother, and we have an eldest brother who probably won't see on this show just because of his day job. Is that how we've labeled it, Red Snapper? Like his day job kind of prevents him from jumping on Twitter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a good way. He's not like a spy or something like that, you know, but he has responsibilities. But yeah, that's just kind of where we're at. So Red Snapper and I will be at the Cal game together. I do have a parking pass. Unfortunately, it's not a Joyce pass because clearly I'm not a season ticket holder. But yeah, we'll be tailgating, and anyone who wants to stop by, more than welcome to. And just talk to Jason or Dave or someone like Kevin or Craig or Brandon. Lots of people showed up that we met on Twitter. We've never met them in real life, and they just showed up, and it's just...
I was going to say, Brandon, we'll look for him in the Joy slot. He's usually there bright and early.
Yeah, Brandon will be there. There's a few people, you know, who've already kind of like invited or whatever, and that's cool, you know. Look, Fighting Irish Faithful, like, what does this show mean? Okay, yes, it's a catchy name. Anyone who's still on listening, you know, anyone like Regisan, you know, Kevin Davis, who just joined us. Thank you, Kevin. Jason Yeager, been on the whole time. Dave is at work listening and speaking, I guess. I don't know. Coach Parsegian, my brother. Anyone else, you know, like at MJVBCT. I'm not really sure what that is, but you've got a picture of Coach Parsegian in the background. That's cool. Tim, hockey fan. And who else is on the chat here? Well, at least on the Twitter space. Samuel Verhoeven. You know, we are the Fighting Irish Faithful. We are not regular fans. We are super fans. And this show is, yes, I'm the host, and I do the stats, and I drink scotch, and da-da-da-da. But really, the show has become more than just me talking. There are so many podcasts or live shows, whatever you want to say, and this is not to be disrespectful to other people, but there's other people that are just talking. There are other people that are credentialed media, you know, that run one of our favorite blogs, for example, and articles that we read, and we go to ND Nation and some of these other places to read, and that's fine. I love those guys. The difference is myself, Red Snapper, we are fans. We have very little filter. Our filter is like, don't break a commandment on the show, right? You know, don't steal, lie, you know, keep the Sabbath holy, whatever. Those are like the rules. Also, don't flush the toilet while you're on the show. Fuck.
I was just gonna say, there's an 11th commandment that I know.
Don't take the Lord's name.
Don't take the Lord's name in vain.
On the show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, like if we're mad, you know, and like people slip up, you know, and stuff like that's happened, you know. But like, you know, like my point is, we are super fans, and the Fighting Irish Faithful is not just me and my Twitter handle. Okay, it is anyone who is a super fan, and if you want to come on and listen, if you want to just come on and talk, if you want to just listen to the podcast version, that's cool too. But I started this show as a way for me to engage with other Notre Dame fans, seek other Notre Dame fans out, and be passionate about the college football team and the university that we love. And that's really what this is about. Not
There's
to get all
a lot
sappy.
of people still listening. Does anybody want to join in and talk or say anything?
We've invited a few people. Some people are on mute. If you're on mute, Dave, I see you there. Red Snapper there. If anyone else, at MJV84, I was also born in 84, if that's what that is. Maybe it's a reference to 1984. I don't know. If you want to jump on and speak, by all means. Oh, I just got a heart there. Dope.
I was gonna say, you just got a green heart, so I'm guessing that's a positive.
What's the difference between a green heart from MJV84 and a purple heart from Jason Yeager?
Green Heart 84 is MJ speaking as born in 1984.
MJV84.
And I was born in 84, but I don't know why mine's purple.
You have to change the heart color, which I only know because as a hardcore Browns fan, if you send a purple heart, you're going to get ganged
You
up
were
on.
wounded in battle and war.
Oh,
Yes.
my girl right there.
Are you from Ohio?
I am.
MJV84.
Whereabouts are you from?
Cleveland, but the west side, Bay Village.
Okay, so you're around the Vermilion, Huron, area?
Kind of, but
Dave, don't ask for her zip code. Like seriously. there
No,
was an
I
episode where
I know where she's at. If she, if she's probably along the lakes or somewhere down that vicinity or near the turnpike or something.
no. I actually live in Chicago now, and
Oh,
Chi-town. Nice.
okay.
yeah.
Tell me you're a Cubs fan.
No, we're Guardians.
Oh, you're
Guardians,
a Guardians
yeah.
fan, aren't you?
I am. No,
Well,
we're trash fans.
Well, I have to say this is actually a monumental moment for the Fighting Irish Faithful show at MJV84. We're not trying to make too big of a deal with this, but you are actually the first female contributor
Yes, she
to
is.
the show.
I was gonna say that.
You are.
Yes,
3
you
years,
are.
we finally have our
that.
first female contributor.
No kidding. Oh, that excites me. I'm so happy.
Yeah, so I'm gonna throw you up a follow right now. There it is. Done.
I already have.
The floor is yours. We've kind of put the spotlight on you, not to embarrass you. This is really a friendly place, but you know our diversity metrics are really terrible right now. You know.
No, you're not embarrassing me. I love it. I like to listen to you guys. It's such great insight. My grandfather went to Notre Dame. He was one of the best friends of our Parsegan, and so we grew up and adored him and loved him. And at his funeral, we had to listen to the Notre Dame fight song when his yeah. So we're hardcore, like the whole entire family.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Well,
And-
that's really great. We're really happy you've joined us tonight, and we're happy with anyone joining the show this evening. That's really wonderful. Anything else? What are you specifically looking forward to this season?
I like to just listen to people who talk about Browns players that are from Notre Dame, like JOK. And Shelby Day, and hearing the prospective players that are going to come up as rookies into the NFL.
So do you put Brady Quinn in that category as well?
Well, of course, not only for his looks, but obviously. I mean,
I'd be a fool if I also said he was not handsome. So
Yeah, I think we'd all be. Yeah.
you're
Every
blind.
guy
Okay.
on
He's a
the
pretty boy.
section
He's
just
a
kinda
pretty boy.
Bowed their head for a second and said, "Yeah."
but Brady Quinn is so. I will say that I did watch him on Fox Sports last week. He is very non-controversial. He does not want to say anything about anyone.
He's a professional.
So he's definitely a professional, but he doesn't want to give his opinion one way or the other. So my biggest supporter for the Browns is Joe Thomas. Love him to death, and he didn't go to Notre Dame, but we just like to see what he says. So no other contribution to this conversation other than listening to you guys.
Well, thank you so much for jumping on. You are welcome anytime.
Absolutely.
And
We
and
definitely
and
appreciate
anyone is welcome. You know, we don't show favorites. You know, but thank you at MJV84 on Twitter. Thank you for joining us. You're happy to listen on and catch a full show on the podcast, or if you want to go into the archives and listen to myself ramble, or Red Snapper, or hear about Dave's ex-wife's story. That's still.
Yeah, thanks a lot, bro.
Hey, you come on here into the space, and it just will happen.
Hey, it's all friends, Dave. I mean,
Yes, it
come
will.
on.
Yeah.
We've tailgated together.
Oh yeah. It's reality. So it's true. So.
There's a couple things I want to wrap up real quick. It's about 11 o'clock, guys. We're about 2 hours in, and I have to go to work tomorrow. I have to look at some parts on the shop floor tomorrow. Couple things I want to talk about here. First and foremost, yes, Notre Dame is number 5 in the coaches poll, but here's the thing, and this is kind of my just general opinion. And Dave, I'm going to put you on mute real quick just so I can throw my weight around right now. The thing with preseason polls is they're all wrong. All of them are wrong. And that's not to say that Notre Dame does not deserve or is not the number 5 ranked team in the country. That's not what I'm saying. The problem I have is, as an evidence-based person who I've talked about all these stats and spreadsheets, if anyone's listened, there's no evidence right now for this season, 2022, to justify these rankings. All these rankings are based off of sports writers and opinions, and yes, the coaches. Okay, fine. But really, nothing has happened. No one's played a single down of football yet. My point here is the rankings, of course, will get better later in the season. And as time has gone on, I've been kind of irritated with preseason rankings. Like, I think in 2006, we started number 2, and we clearly were not the number 2 team in the country. In 2012, USC was actually number 1 in the country, and we beat the shit. Well, we didn't beat the shit out of them in 2012, but we did beat them, and it was a convincing win in 2012. Thank you, 5 field goals and Kyle Brenza. My point here is I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock into our current ranking of 5th in the coaches poll, which also means I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock in Alabama at number 1 and Ohio State wherever the fuck they are above us. And I'm not going to also do any predictions for how we are going to do this season. I started this podcast and this show with, this is a preview podcast of all the podcasts doing previews. Because if you listen to other shows right now, they're probably talking about like Notre Dame versus this team, Notre Dame versus this team, and they're going down the schedule and they're saying this game loss, this game win, or whatever. Okay? I'm not going to do that. I won't do that because there's no evidence that says that. Now, when we get closer to the Ohio State game, I'll run the numbers and I'll kind of do my assessment, and it'll be a very evidence-based prediction. I will have a prediction then, but that's 3-4 weeks from now. Fine. My point here is this. One thing we can look at, and something I think we can make an assessment on, is we now have a brand new coach. And our new coach, this is his first full season coaching college football as a head coach ever. Red Snapper and anyone else who knows me well, where am I going to go with this? I'm going to compare Marcus Freeman. I can't really compare him because he's coached 1 game. But what I can do is look at other coaches who have won the title. How many years were they at their program when they won? How many years were they a head coach? And then in the first year they were with said team, how many wins did they get? And furthermore, the previous coach who was fired or left or retired or whatever, how many wins did they have in their last season that said coach inherited? That's a lot I just threw at you, so let me walk you through it. Let's start with Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart obviously won the title. That was his 6th year at Georgia. It was also his 6th year ever as a head coach. Prior to that, he was under Nick Saban at Alabama. Okay? So 6 years it took Kirby Smart at Georgia to win his first title. Mark Richt was the coach before him, of course, very well and respected coach, and I actually have a lot of respect for Mark Richt. I don't really like the fact that he went to Miami. But other than that, Mark Richt left him with 10 wins in the 2015 season. Dave, you got to turn your Bluetooth on.
Okay, I got my. I'm on the Bluetooth.
I can tell you're
so
driving home.
Yeah, I'm driving home now, for crying out loud.
Yes, be safe, please. I'm gonna mute you
Okay,
because I'm gonna. Oh, no. This is key moment, and then I'll open it up for questions. But right now, this is my thing here. So we could start with Kirby Smart. And I went back with every coach who has won the title all the way back in their first year, their first season, all the way back to Bob Stoops. So that's 14 coaches: Kirby Smart, Ed Ogeron, Dabo Sweeney, Jimbo Fisher, Gene Chizik, Les Miles, Urban Meyer, Mac Brown, Pete Carroll, fuck that guy, Nick Saban, Jim Tressel, Larry Coker, does anyone know who he is? And Bob Stoops. And I also threw in Lou Holtz there as well, just because we love him. Of these 14 coaches, including Holtz, how many years were they at the program when they won the title on average? How many years total had they been a head coach? And how many wins did they have in their first year with the program they won the title with? So let's, for example, let's just pick a random one.
I would say the average.
Pick one. No. Red Snapper, just pick a coach. Of all these guys I just picked.
Oh, I'm going to go Lou Holtz.
Okay, Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz won a title in year 3 at Notre Dame. That was year 19 as a head coach. His first year as a head coach was 1969 with William and Mary. His record that year was 3-7 at William and Mary. His first year at Notre Dame was 5-6. Okay, that's kind of a low bar. Jimbo Fisher, a little different. Okay, he was first year head coach in 2010, taking over for Bowden when he retired. Okay, Fisher went 10-4 his first season and inherited a program under Bowden that went 7-6 the year previous, and he won in year 4. So if you take all these 14 coaches over all that period of time, and furthermore, Dabo Sweeney does not get 2 years. Saban does not get 2 seasons with LSU and Alabama respectively, and however, God knows how many titles Alabama's won since then. And then Urban Meyer gets 2. He only gets 1. Excuse me. He only gets the one from Florida from 2006. On average, years at program to win the title, 3.9, about 4, with a standard deviation of 2.3.
I was going to say between 3 and 4.
Yeah, it's closer to 4. Years total as a head coach, on average, 8.5.
I was going to say 8 to 9.
Yep. And wins in their first year with that program that they ultimately won their first title with, 7.9.
Oh, that's higher than I thought.
About 8 wins. Yeah, because there's a few that throw it off. Like Urban Meyer did pretty well his first year. Bob Stoops did halfway decent. Nick Saban was a decent coach, right? Or is a decent coach, right? And most of these guys are not even coaching anymore. Kirby Smart's coaching, Dabo Sweeney's coaching, Jimbo, and Urban Meyer, or excuse me, Mac Brown is still coaching, which is crazy, and Saban. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Wins inherited. The previous coach finished the previous year with 6.8 wins. Now, where does this leave Marcus Freeman? I went on and just said I'm not going to do any predictions, but what I will say is this. Statistically, what can Marcus Freeman do that breaks the mold, or where could we see him within the fringes of the standard deviation of these guys? I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers and stats at you, but if you follow me on Twitter, I've made a commitment that I'm going to talk about more about the standard deviation, because the average is the average, but really a small standard deviation really is more statistically significant. And no, I'm not a statistician at work, but I am an engineer. The best I think Marcus Freeman could do, if you took the average and then added or subtracted, depending on what the stat was, what is the best on average statistically, historically, that Marcus Freeman could do this season? Years at program to win title, 1.5 years, 2 years. That's pretty good. So that's 3.9 minus 2.3. Years as a head coach, 2 years. Okay. Maybe 2023 is going to be the awesome year with Tyler Buckner with 1 year, full year under his belt. Who knows?
Class of
New
five
recruiting
star.
class. Maybe Mayer stays. Who knows, right? Wins first year with program. The best mathematically I think we can expect from Marcus this season is 10.1.
Mm-hmm.
Wins inherited. The best is about 11, which is ironic because that's what he had. Actually, it's 8. It's about 9. If you do the math, he would, mathematically would have inherited a 9-win team, and that's a good scenario. He inherited an 11-win team from Kelly, quite frankly, which is really good. Now,
how many of the coaches that won were inheriting a team that they stayed at? So like Jimbo Fisher staying on after Bobby Bowden, staying in the same program and basically just
Dabo stayed.
Are they more statistically significant because they stayed within the same program?
That's typically not what happens. Usually a new guy just comes in. I think Bob Stoops maybe was promoted, but he won in year 2, and things of that nature. So I think actually the stats would show that just typically doesn't happen. They go out and they find another head coach at some other program and they bring him on. Like take Nick Saban. He was at Michigan State, and then LSU gets rid of their previous coach and brings Saban on, and then I think in year 4 he wins his first title, right? So that's kind of the way that works. Now, I don't want to just compare Marcus Freeman to the team, these coaches that win the title. I was kind of curious, since Holtz left, we've had a couple coaches. We've had Davey, Willingham, Weiss, and Kelly. Where did those guys do in their first year? Okay, so Holtz, and we're going to throw Holtz in here as well. Holtz, in his first year, people need to remember this. Lou Holtz, the last coach at Notre Dame that won a title, he only won 5 fucking football games his first year. 5 games. And then he won 8 the next season. He won 5. Bob Davey, 7. Willingham, 10. He's actually the best of this group. Weiss won 9. Kelly won 8. For an average of 7.9. If you add the standard deviation of 1.9 to 7.8, you get 9.7, which is similar to statistically what these national champion level coaches do. 10 wins. This is not me predicting anything this season. This is just what the numbers come out with. Adding the standard deviation to the average. Now, if some statistician comes on here and rips me that my stats are wrong, fan-fucking-tastic, right? But no other podcast is going to give you this information. No one else is going to go through, do this analysis that's a fan, that's not a sports writer, that's going to look at these numbers and say, how is Marcus Freeman going to do this year? Well, if you take the last 14 coaches who won titles and and da-da-da-da, add their average and do their standard deviation shit, 10 wins. That's I think the best. The average is 8. At Notre Dame, the average is 8. I'm not saying Notre Dame is going to go 8 wins this season, but I need to be a voice of reason here. We love Marcus Freeman. I actually think it's really great that he's our head coach. And if someone had, Joe, do you want him to be the coach? I'd say absolutely, 100%. Fuck Kelly, get rid of him. Marcus Freeman, if he goes 8 wins, 9 wins, 10 wins, I'm okay with that. And not because I'm settling, but because it's his first year. And none of these coaches, I mean, Nick Saban, he's the gold standard, right? Without question. Nick Saban's first year, he went 9-2 at Toledo, which is way better on average than all these other coaches in their first year. The average wins these coaches have is about 6 in their first season. Lou Holtz in 1969 at William and Mary, 3 wins. Granted, it's William and Mary. It's not Notre Dame, and he didn't inherit an 11-win team and a great recruiting class and, an NBC contract and all these other things. So that was the last piece of statistics and numbers and data, and that is what anyone who is new, that's what you're going to get with this podcast. That's what you're going to get with this show. We go with numbers, we go with data, and the data drives the show while we drink scotch, and we value your contribution. Well, there's a lot of people on mute. Coach Parsegian, speak.
I'll just throw this in there. You talking about Saban and LSU with his title. He was a beneficiary of the BCS that year. As much as I hate USC and Pete Carroll, USC deserved that spot over LSU. Just saying.
Oh, hey, you're talking to 2 guys from California, and I distinctly remember New Year's Day, us observing what was going on and thinking that SC belonged in the BCS championship game. And
we loved watching them get screwed, but we both were like,
no,
why?
there's no way. They're way better, and I'm actually currently reading a book. I promised the author that I would not share or talk about it, but I am currently reading a book about essentially the corruption of the of the BCS system and how the current playoff format is preferred. It's a very outdated book, but the author, I reached out to them and said, hey, you have a copy of the book? And I got it. So I'm currently in the works on that. But essentially the BCS was, I didn't like it either. You want Joe's opinion? I think it should be an 8-team format. No buys, none of that. Just 8 teams, playoffs, go.
Well, I think that's going to come with the super conferences developing.
Well, we'll find out, and that will be certainly a conversation for the future.
Well, as many teams that are looking to join the SEC right now, there better not be any more cupcake teams on their schedule. There's plenty of teams for everybody to play to fill a 12-game schedule.
Like Kelly at LSU?
Oh, pretty much.
That's still a cupcake, isn't it?
And good grief, you've got Vanderbilt. Everybody can play Vanderbilt instead of like the Hoover Walmart third shift that Alabama and Auburn usually play.
Right. Well, I've reached the end of my page here of what I wanted to talk about. Dave, final thoughts? I hear you.
Yeah, I like the stats you just gave out with the coaches.
Those are stats that can impress chicks. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what how that system works out in this 2022 season. I mean, especially starting out with the game that we have, which I mean, we've never been shy to play anybody anywhere. So now with a new staff, a new, culture, I think, if we are I'm being hypothetical, if we win that game, I have, this is my prediction, I predict that we'll beat Clemson by 2 or 3 touchdowns when they come November 5th. And I think the toughest game after that is going to be the last game in the Coliseum. Now, they're going to have a very good offense. They need to come up with some kind of defense because their defense hasn't been worth a snot for quite a while. That we have a very good chance of running to the table if week 1 becomes reality in our favor.
Yep. I've gone on record to say that I genuinely do think this is a prediction. the winner of the Notre Dame Ohio State game, I think will be in the
Makes the
playoffs.
playoffs.
I think they will
Yeah,
be
I
in the
agree.
playoffs.
Or-
I think, like, look, CJ Stroud's good, and if you deny that, you're a fool.
Yeah.
The momentum that either team that wins, it doesn't matter, the momentum that team will have into their season will be huge. Because these are teams that, like, I haven't even done this research. I don't even know the last time, well, okay, in the regular season that Ohio State and Notre Dame have played each other. Okay, they've been to some BCS games, right? But other than that,
Yeah.
I can't name before, what was it, 2005 season? I can't name any season that, these guys face each other in the regular season
It's
before my lifetime, or
been a
as a
while.
rational adult. So
I think back in the 90s, they played a home and home.
Eddie
And
George ran all over us.
yes, and the one game wasn't too bad. The other was kind of a, if I recall, I can remember.
1996.
Was it
95.
96?
Notre Dame lost
1995.
29-16.
Mark
Okay.
Edwards went.
JP
Mark Edwards.
GMVP has joined us, new contributor to the Fighting Irish Faithful show. Sir, please speak.
Yeah, I was no age. God, that was 95. I was born in 88, watching it. A hell of a game. Eddie George went crazy and they lost.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I got a question. I'm trying to think of next year's schedule. Do we play them the first game
Second.
like we're doing this year, next year?
No, next year I think we play at Navy in Ireland first, which would be cool, by the way, if you had
Is that the
tons of
Ireland
money,
and Dublin?
or lots of credit in your credit card. But I'm pretty sure we play Navy first, and then we come back and play them either second or third. I think it's the third. I think we have like some cupcake game in between then. But yeah, that game is at home later. So
It's really going to be exciting if Notre Dame can actually pull off the upset and beat the Buckeyes at the Horseshoe. It's just going to totally change the whole outlook of the rest of the season. The recruits are going to look at us. It's just going to be. It would literally be like heaven on earth for a Notre Dame fan for that to happen.
yeah. We will be flying.
Good thoughts there, definitely.
We will be flying high, and we will have so much momentum. And, hey, I've got the fight song here on the wall in front of me. What though the odds, great or small, right? The odds here of this game, right? This is a tall order. To go into Ohio State, this has been on the schedule for like 10, 12 years. Like, I don't even know. It's been slated, and here it is. It's around the corner from us. So,
I know there's quite a few Notre Dame fans trying to go. Naturally, Notre Dame's not going to fill up the stadium as like Georgia fans would, like they do our stadium. But it would be cool.
That was coming off of a 4-8 season, but yes.
That's true. It would be cool to see a lot of blue and gold or some green in the corner of the Horseshoe just to represent us being there.
Yeah.
I think you'll see some of that.
I think that you will. People who are season ticket holders, people like Brandon Fry, who's been a contributor to the show, and a few other people I know are going to the game. I unfortunately am not. I would have loved to have gone, but it just was not possible, and it doesn't make financial sense for me to do that right now. I'm already going to 2 games. I'm going to Marshall and Cal right after. I will say this. We will definitely be doing a post-game show after the biggest fucking game of the regular season, this Ohio State game. I don't care if it's, midnight. We're doing a post-game show, right? And either we're going to have fucking awesome time. And I've already told the doc, I'm like, babe, that game's at night, and I think any night game, we need to go to mass on Saturday night, so Sunday morning we don't have to worry about it, right? So anyway, well, gents, and our first and only female contributor, she jumped off at MJV84. We had a monumental moment here in the show. Fantastic. We need our first international caller, someone from Canada or Europe or what have you. Anyone who's listening, people who have stayed on, someone like Kevin or Regasan or Sam here, thank you everyone for just listening. We appreciate it. Jason, you've been on the whole time. Dave, you've been on and off. Eric Parsegian, on and off. My co-host, Red Snapper 9098. I am, my heart is full. And any other thoughts anyone has?
I just want to say I am extremely hopeful. I'm extremely excited. And just the camaraderie that we all get to share as Notre Dame fans and super fans, and sit there and throw out opinions and, what our takes are on things, give some hot take predictions, things of that nature.
And Brian Kelly.
We'll sit down, we'll mull over all the statistics, but what really makes it fun is getting everyone's interpretation of how those statistics impact and where those priorities are going to be. Yeah, we can all have the game plan. How do we all interpret that? And that's always fun to see.
Well, and if we are straying from the course, or we hit a couple losses or whatever, or our priorities are severely fucked and we turn into an Mike Leach air raid offense, which is an unsustainable model, right? We will not be shy on this podcast. I will come on here and say this is fucking lunacy or whatever. Trust me, scotch or no scotch, it doesn't matter. Okay, we have no overlords other than the social media police or whatever. And since we're trying not to break commandments on the show, I guess we'll be okay on that.
Yes. Yes.
I wonder what type of impact Al Golden's going to bring to the defense that's going to be different than even like last year's team. I mean, naturally, he has a lot of experience, and he's going to be doing a couple of different deals. And not, Marcus Freeman's already a good defensive coach, so I'm excited to see, probably one of the best defenses in the country there, and Tommy Rees as the offense coordinator. I mean, things are looking bright. I can't wait.
I think
we're
that's
going to see more of a professional style hiding of, or kind of fake, hiding the defense. I think you're going to see a lot more of that, a lot more movement, a lot more disguising. That's the word I was looking for, disguising.
Yeah.
Don't overthink the defense, but we need to just fucking tackle and God, we need a secondary that can hold up the receivers of and not commit holding penalties, but stop the receivers.
I'm just terrified of the home run play. Us giving up 70-yard touchdown passes. Whenever we do that, we're never worth a fuck. But if we can just stop that and get a few turnovers, that's the difference of winning and losing the game right there.
Yep.
The secondary against Ohio is going to be key.
Yep. Kevin speaks the truth.
Yes. Yes. We can't do that. Can't. Really. I think the defense is going to be very good, but I'm calling it now. Number 24 will be the Bus 2.0. He is going to shock NCAA football this year. We saw a little bit of glimpse of it at the spring game. This guy is an absolute beast. I'm telling you what, that kid better get the ball quite a bit. I mean, quite a bit, especially with the line he's going to have. Oh, my goodness. Really? Come on. Yeah. We haven't had a back this big since Jerome. I don't think Jones was as big as this kid. So
I can't remember a running back as big as what he is. I keep thinking James Aldridge, but he's way bigger than James Aldridge.
Yeah, I'm getting a Robert Hughes vibe right now.
Yeah, Robert Hughes. I think Robert was a little bit taller than this kid, But this kid is put together like a brick crap house, and I mean, he is a monster.
It'd be nice to have that Lindell White
he has got some. And when us three were watching that spring game, his feet were unbelievable. I couldn't believe how quick he could just shift and be up back to speed just like that. I mean, the kid's got some moves, and he's going to be able to run you over as well.
Yep.
I think he's got a lot of heart too. You can tell by looking at him.
Oh gosh, yeah, he's a New Jersey kid. Yeah.
Nice.
Nothing like leg drive and motor and a little bit of pissed off, get the out of my way.
Oh yeah.
You can cuss. It's okay.
That's what we need. We haven't had a back like that in a while, and that's going to be nice. Yeah. I don't know. I got to order Wendy's while you guys are talking.
I want to see a couple plays where the offense absolutely just says,
"Can I get a number?"
Oh, for fuck's sake,
number
Dave.
2.
Get me a fucking Frosty.
Hey, Dave, give me a quarter pounder with cheese.
It's his first time. Come on, guys.
It is not his first time. He knows better than this.
It's not a flushed toilet. I will say that.
That's actually. All right, I don't think I could top that. All right, I'm gonna thank you everyone for joining us.
Supersize that order, man. You got fries.
Yeah, get a supersize. Are you at McDonald's? And you know what? Next episode, we're gonna ask Dave how his quarter pounder with cheese was, or where the fuck he ordered. So, everyone, thank you so much. It's been a good show. It's late. We're definitely over 2 hours in. We're gonna try to keep these 2 hours. We got kind of a little long tonight. In addition to the new stats, thank you everyone for joining. And we had some new people at MJV84, people like Kevin Davis at Davis0560, Jim at Jim Paul Gorman 2, and a few other people, everyone else who's listened on. And we got some of our regulars, Eric Precision, Dave ordering a number 2 with supersize, and Jason Yeager. Red Snapper, and a few other people I saw jump on. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. There's one other thing that we're going to do. We have new stats. We have a new store, the Etsy store, Fighting Irish Faithful gear, if you so wish. If not, no big deal. I'm just going to buy it myself. And my family will be getting Christmas presents. But then we also not only have a new logo, we have a brand new theme for 2022, which I'm going to leave you with. Here is the new Fighting Irish Faithful theme. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Throws the ball. It is caught. Reggie Brooks. Reggie Brooks got it for a two-pointer, and Notre Dame is out in front, 17-16. Lost the ball. The pass is batted down. It's batted down by Terrell.
It's caught by Samaja. Inside the 20. Inside the 10. He's going in. Notre Dame has scored. Dawson throws. Open receiver in the end zone. Touchdown. Notre Dame. Somehow the Irish did it.
Out of the pack. 30, 35. Goodbye, baby. At the 50, the 40, the 30, the 20, the 10. Bye-bye. Rocket touchdown. Irish.
Tyree. Whoa. Can he get there? Tyree at the 30. 20. 10. Touchdown. Notre Dame. Woo. 98. Big ones. Zibikowski looking for a block. Cuts to the right to the 40. Gets a block. Gets to the 45, 50. Up to the 45, 40, 30. One man to beat. 20, 15, 10. He's down to the 5. Touchdown Irish.